Today. Now, going over to the political part of the podcast, you have Vivek Ramaswamy on shutting down the ATF and also noting the government execution of citizens and their family at Ruby Ridge. Now, if you're a gun enthusiast or firearms enthusiast or just someone who believes in the Constitution, you may very well have remembered Ruby Ridge and the massacre that took place all those years ago. And we'll describe this actually in this little text that Vivek gives. And as youth, as youth might say, this went viral to say the least. So all the statistics were written down about 24 hours after it's posted. It got specifically 1.6 million views and 34,000 likes. Now going to the top where he does have a little graph showing on how he would reorganize the ATF and shut it in an attempt to shut it down. Now, the text before the little graph or infograph says, quote, "I'll shut down the FBI and ATF, and here's one more reason why. A voter in Iowa recently reminded me of the story of Ruby Ridge and the Weaver family. In 1992, Randy Weaver sold a sawed-off shotgun to a federal informant and was then surrounded at his cabin for refusing to appear in court. First, they killed his dog, then they shot and killed his son, who was a 14-year-old Samuel Weaver. His wife, Vicky, also was shot and killed by an FBI sniper while holding their 10-month-old daughter inside their house. Weaver was later acquitted and awarded $3 million settlement by the DOJ. Another case of entrapment and disproportionate politicized abuse of federal power. I will shut down toxic three other agencies like the FBI and ATF that are beyond the point of incremental reform, using my constitutional authority and as the U.S. president to do it." Now, the little infograph, unquote, he says how he shut down the ATF. So he would, looks like he shut it down to, let's see here. So here's an infograph that says 668 employees. He would take the arson and explosives and reassign them to Department of Homeland Security. Criminal organization would go to the Department of Justice. Financial investigation would go to the U.S. Treasury Department. Looks like the firearms trafficking, tracing, and possession would go to the U.S. Secret Service. And unfortunately, I'm trying to see. I'll pull this up here. Curious. Let me switch to that profile. I don't think he does too many replies, but I'm curious to see if he replied to my comment. No, he did not. Oh well. So one of the biggest point contentions in the firearm community or the constitutional community is the National Firearms Act, which was passed in the 1930s, and that got to the point where they basically wanted to tax your rights away. So they wanted to make it so that individuals couldn't own things like suppressors, short-barreled rifles, short-barreled shotguns, and other destructive devices later. Or they claim that's how they're classified, literally, as destructive devices. So in 1934, they passed the National Firearms Act, and they said you could have these items, but you have to pay a $200 tax stamp on it. So they knew it was constitutional, and yet they passed it anyway, pretending, oh yeah, it's just a tax. Now keep in mind, the price of a suppressor in the 1930s was about $7. So $7, and they wanted to put a $200 tax on it. And to this day, it's still $200. The only good thing about inflation is that $200 nowadays is not as burdensome as it was in the 1930s. And even more visually disgusting, not only do you have to pay a $200 tax stamp on those items, we also have to pay sales tax on top of that for something that is a constitutional right. Now, I asked, and granted, I don't want to say a lot of people liked it, but one person did like it. Was it? I wonder who it was. But nevertheless, I asked, quote, Vivek Ramaswamy, would you repeal the National Firearms Act? At the time, they knew it was unconstitutional, but justified it by claiming it was a tax, which they made the tax stamp at $200. In the 1930s, that was more than the item's value. They wanted to regulate. Now, unfortunately, one person liked that, but nevertheless, perhaps that's the most awesome person on the planet. And that does raise a good question, though, because again, you want to shut down these apartments, but again, those unconstitutional laws are still around. So how would you solve that big problem? And also, if you were to subsequently delete those laws or get rid of those laws, you'd boost American manufacturing and create basically a whole new category of products overnight, because that burden to purchase them would be relieved for so many people, thereby generating unprecedented demand for the products. So it would also be a great way to boost the economy. Granted, I don't know if our government really cares about doing that anymore these days, for the most part. Now, nevertheless, getting back to the comments that were much more viral than mine in response to Vivek, and again, that got 1.6 million views and 34,000 likes. Now, one of the top comments comes from Adrian Curry, and she says, quote, "Bro, please be real. I don't care if you line your pockets on the side so long as you do the shit you say you do," unquote. That got 338 likes. And we have Luke Zaleski, who is if we looked at the profile of him before, he's a lot of people describe him as a leftist. Very much hates pretty much anyone as a modicum of constitutional intelligence or is a Republican. And he says, quote, Vivek is like a secret agent of our adversaries sent to gut the criminal justice system and rule of law, but like Trump, he does it right out of the open and pretends it's politics and not overthrowing of the government orchestrated by conmen and marauding oligarchs and autocrats, unquote. They did get 86 likes, interestingly enough. Let's see. And a couple more contrarian statements. Steve says, quote, so you'll shut down one organization just to give all the work to another, making them either need twice the employees or do half as good a job. Brilliant, Vivek. That's about as smart as your idea of raising taxes on everyone to pay for three armed guards in every school, unquote. I got 4 likes. So a couple of contrarian statements here. Now, more of the popular ones. Christina Huff says, quote, after Ruby Ridge and Waco, I lost all trust in the government. The government seems to forget that there's a lot of us still alive that remember what really happened at those 2 events. The government killed innocent people, unquote. That got 1.6 thousand likes. Lemon Jello Jones says, quote, establish a flat tax and get rid of the IRS too, unquote. That got 1.5 thousand likes. Callan Silvers says, quote, imagine Donald Trump and Vivek in the same administration. Follow if you'd like to see it, unquote. They got 2.5 thousand likes. Continue to go down the line here. Rob W. says, quote, I don't think we have ever seen any candidate from either side lay out their plans so transparently for all voters to see. No matter if you support Vivek or even believe in his politics, don't you wish everyone that runs for office lays out their details for his talking points, unquote. I got 636 likes, which that would be really nice. It'd be even better if there's some type of contract where if you actually campaign for something, you don't do it, you get fired from that job subsequently. Because again, so many politicians will say they'll promise you the world. Then, once they actually start the job, nothing ever actually happens. Let's see here. Scrolling down, got more and more support for him. See here. Pack said, quote, a lousy $3 million. That's disgusting considering the payouts of victims of police-related deaths. Gross, unquote. Got 578 likes. Evergreen says, quote, Waco was another shameful event. I never trusted Democrats after that, unquote. I got 632 likes. And as I scroll down, let's see here. Emulubert said, quote, the Weaver story is even worse. The informant tricked him into selling him a shotgun that was shorter than legal because of the point where the length was measured was different than Randy understood. Federal agents rolled up and shot his son's dog while kid was out without announcing themselves, unquote, getting 85 likes, which, I mean, it's just kind of what the ATF, it's like their hobby. They really don't like dogs. I mean, just go down the rabbit hole of seeing like their policies and procedures and how they train and what they execute in practice. You'll see some common themes, I'll say that much. See here. Stace simply, do 1 or 2 more. Scuba Steve says, quote, get the IRS out of here, unquote, getting 237 likes. Again, just overwhelming support for this idea, with a couple wanting to point him in a little different directions. And I think a lot of people, let's see here, do one more. J.K. Johnny said, quote, in his little infographic, a little picture of the Ruby Ridge family. And the text says, quote, Ruby Ridge, never forget how far the government will go to kill you and your family, unquote. And they got 213 likes, all because he cut down the barrel of a shotgun. Which, again, if you pay the $200 tax stamp and you do the paperwork, then you are allowed to own, as long as your state allows it. On a federal level, you can. So, a $200 tax stamp, and the feds tricked him, just cut down the barrel a little bit more. And they killed his whole family. Does that sound just? I can't help but think, unfortunately, some people who really hate guns would probably say that. Or a lot of people would also call those people communists. But nevertheless, going back to the comments, it's still overwhelming support. Now, the only downside is, what's it doing to the polls? Is it actually helping him in any way? Because, again, he's going viral all the time. He's having a lot of posts that'll get well over 1 million hits. And yet in the poll aggregator, and again, there's no such thing as a perfect poll, We're just working with what data we have at the moment. And again, just by phrasing the questions differently, you can get different results. And the sample sizes in this case aren't great. I mean, most of these sample sizes are between, it looks like the smallest sample size is 529 registered voters, and the largest sample size is 4,206 registered voters. So again, the sample sizes aren't great, but with what data we have right now, it looks like Vivek is still at 4.5%. Let's see here. Yeah, so he's a little bit down. I mean, earlier last week he was around 4.8, but now he's down to 4.5. And again, Trump is still at 61.3%. DeSantis is at 12.5%. Nikki Haley's at 11.5%. Vivek, again, 4.5. Chris Christie's at 3.6. H. Hudson actually went up a little bit, now at 0.9%. So nearly at that 1% mark. He's been fighting to get that all for actually about a year. So it'll be interesting to see. But again, a lot of people are agreeing with him. He has a lot of policies that people really find favorable on social media. But again, we will find out shortly when the tires hit the pavement, so to say, how much of that correlates to the real world results. Thank you again, everyone, for taking the time to tune in today. Again, we're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of January. So if you click that button, I greatly appreciate it. Also, leaving a thumbs up and a comment is a great way to give me some additional feedback. So let me know how I can improve the quality of the show. Also helps with the YouTube algorithm and helps some more people see it. Also, don't forget to take time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.